meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Prine. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor Larkey.
Here.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Powell.
Here.
Councilmember Prine.
Here.
Councilmember Kraft.
Here.
Councilmember McCallum.
Here.
Councilmember Goff.
Present.
Councilmember Lawson.
Here.
Councilmember Richardson.
Here. We have a quorum. Personal appearances. A, employee recognition, years of service. I was wondering what you was doing here. I know.
I'm Chief Scott Lyons of the Belton Police Department. Who I have here with me is Carla Wills, who is our dispatch supervisor, and Lieutenant James Hosh, who is over our criminal investigations unit. And both of these employees are celebrating 25 years of service to the city of Belton. And I can't think of two finer examples of the police department when it comes to Supervisor Wills and Lieutenant Hosh. In fact, I think that I get the most trouble out of this one right here. And so
I would agree with that.
And I think that both of these employees are very dedicated members of the police department that exhibit our values, integrity, trust, and respect. And I just want to say thank you for your many years of service. I know that as I've been police chief, I've leaned heavily on both of you and will continue to do so, especially during the coming years. So thank you.
Thank you. Stay up there for a picture now. Wow. Oh.
Not in front of HR.
Unfinished business. A, motion approving the final reading of Bill 2023-69.
An ordinance approving the 2024 intergovernmental agreement with the Mid-America Regional Council Solid Waste Management District for participation in the Regional Household Hazardous Waste Program.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mayor Larkey.
Yes.
Councilmember Goff.
Yes.
Prine.
Aye.
White.
Yep.
Richardson.
Aye.
McCallum.
Aye.
Lawson.
Aye.
Powell.
Yes.
Kraft.
Aye.
Motion carries. New business. A, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-70.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial for properties on the east side of Elmira Circle and west of North Scott Avenue, and approval of a preliminary development plan for contractor office and warehouse buildings on the subject properties.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Before this evening, our request for a rezoning and a preliminary development plan for the development of a 4-building contractor and warehouse development on the east side of Elmira, which is west of North Scott Avenue. This request includes rezoning 4 undeveloped lots from C2 General Commercial to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial, which matches the North Scott Corridor's future land use map. The preliminary development plan includes developing each of the 4 lots with a 2,500 square foot building, which includes 2 garage bays, central office, and restrooms. These buildings can accommodate small contractor businesses as well as limited craft manufacturing uses, which is consistent with proposed zoning and permitted land uses. These plans do meet all UDC standards, with the exception of a reduction of the rear setback for the 2 northernmost buildings and allowing overhead doors to face the public street. Staff believes that both of those modifications are warranted due to the limited depth of the lots and the topography, as well as the limited visibility for North Scott Avenue. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 21st, at which no one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request. The Commission recommended unanimous approval of both the rezoning and the preliminary development plan, and they also approved a final development plan contingent on approval of these requests by the council. Staff recommends approval of the request with 7 conditions that are attached to the ordinance. And if there are no unanswered questions or concerns with the request this evening, staff does request a double read to allow the applicant to proceed with the building permit review process.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. A, motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-70.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from C2 General Commercial to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial for properties on the east side of Elmira Circle and west of North Scott Avenue, and approval of a preliminary development plan for contractor office and warehouse buildings on the subject properties.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Mayor,
Go ahead.
only that I'd like to ask, when did FCI come in as a zoning? I've never heard of that before, and how does that differ from light industrial or?
It's similar to the business park zoning that we have for Marquee Business Park. It went into the code in 2017 when the North Scott Overlay District was adopted. And so far to date, the only properties that have been rezoned to that is one property on North Scott, and then all of Southview Commerce Center was rezoned to FCI as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
So because this is a change, this will further our North Scott overlay plan, right?
Correct. It is in keeping with the North Scott corridor plan that was adopted in 2017.
And then I just want to say, I saw there's going to be some rosebuds and whatnot, and I think that will be great for that area, so.
Anybody else? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Yes.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. B, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-71.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from M1 Light Industrial to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial for properties addressed as 924 Locust Hill Circle and 951 Locust Hill Circle.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up
Yep.
again.
Yep, before this evening is a request to rezone 2 properties at 924 and 951 Locust Hill Circle from M1 Light Industrial to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial, which would accommodate a new contractor business with an expansion to an existing outdoor storage area. This rezoning brings the property into compliance with the North Scott Corridor's future land use map and also accommodates the requested modifications which were approved by the Planning Commission contingent on approval of the rezoning by the council. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on November 21st, at which no one spoke in favor or in opposition to the request, and the Commission recommended unanimous approval of the rezoning and approved a final development plan. If there are no unanswered questions or concerns this evening, staff does request a double read to allow the applicant to proceed with their business license and building permit for the proposed fencing and screening modifications to the site.
Any questions? Go ahead.
Well, this has nothing to do against the company that's going in there. But I'm just wondering why this rezoning allows private fencing to hide outside storage when other companies on North Scott have been told they can't do that.
The rezoning in this situation, there's already an outdoor storage area. They have a couple of bins that they would also be putting outside and they would be screened. The other challenge is a lot of the properties directly on North Scott do not fall into that same category. This is a secondary street that's a dead end. And typically the storage has to be in the back of an FCI zoned property. In this situation, they don't have a rear yard. They have side and front yards because of where the buildings are situated.
Well, I heard two things in there. I heard side and front versus back, but then I also heard existing versus new. I mean, there's at least 2 businesses I can cite. I won't here, but I can remember that got citations because they stored stuff outside, and yet when they said, well, we'll put up a fence, they said, no, that's against the North Scout overlay requirements. So it's a little, to me, it's a little squishy there. I don't know if it has to do with being the FCI. I don't know if it has to do with, with storage versus they didn't store, but they asked before they did it, or what?
I think that's a big part of it. In this situation, it is a business that's coming in and looking at that property, and they are going through the proper procedures to rezone it, and they are specifically making the request to allow some minor storage outside that is properly screened.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is I could go to these two companies who've asked, I guess, I'm not even, I think it might have even been before your time, well, at least one of them, but where they've asked the existing planning director, can we do this? And they were told no, but it sounds like if they go through the proper procedures, you got a chance.
It all is based on generally the location, and like I said, in this situation, it is a cul-de-sac street. It's not visible from North Scott, so there are limited visibility concerns, and there are appropriate areas where there could be some outdoor storage as long as it's screened.
Okay. Well, I mean, and this is also something that's always made me think a little bit. There's rules, and then there's judgment, and I think that the judgment comes down on the side of the people doing the right thing, which is the way it should be, but it shouldn't be so flexible that people who've been here forever see new guys coming in and getting what they want, and they also, the older people ask, or the older generation asks for stuff, and I guess it just boils down to they're not doing the appropriate thing, which is come in, do the filing, put in the paperwork and all that stuff, and see where it goes. Maybe they're coming and asking and being turned off by saying, you can't do that. And so, okay. My second question is, why doesn't you explicitly, well, first of all, this isn't a final development plan or anything, it's a rezoning, but explicitly say sidewalks aren't required. I don't know why. I mean, sidewalks are required for major redevelopment. Maybe this is minor redevelopment? Maybe there's no pedestrians in that area? I don't know.
Councilmember Powell, if I may, I'd like to address both the issues you're bringing up. Specifically, if you look at the North Scott Overlay District, and the purpose behind that is it's to facilitate redevelopment of a highly trafficked area in our community, correct? And so this specific street that these properties sit on are a kind of a side street, it's a dead end. Not a lot of through traffic. The only people going back through there are folks that are actually going back there to access those specific businesses. So I mean, it does feel like I can understand your perspective that we're picking and choosing where and who to give these exceptions to this overlay district. But I think if you go back to the intention of what the overlay district is and why it was set in place to begin with, we're trying, I mean, you're finding that across the board we're trying to be flexible if we can when we have the ability to do so, while keeping in the spirit of what we're supposed to be doing when it comes to these overlay districts and whatnot. And I think that here we're just trying to help a business to operate. It already is in a situation where there is the outdoor storage specifically. There aren't sidewalks specifically. There's not an expectation of a lot of pedestrian traffic back there to begin with. Those are the types of things we take into consideration with some of with granting some of these inconsistent findings on why and when and how. Whereas the North Scott corridor is highly trafficked. There is residential nearby. People do use the sidewalks along North Scott. So to treat some of these side subsidiary streets in areas like this one specifically in the exact same vein as North Scott, I think would be would probably be a mistake in some regards. And so if you look at the whole thing in totality, that's where you can see, that's where that inconsistent application comes from, is trying to be flexible while also trying to get the end result that was the intention of what some of these districts are, like the overlay district.
Okay. Well, I just see that as you drive up North Scott, you see a lot of equipment stored outside, and some of those businesses have asked, can we put up privacy fences to screen it if you're upset about it? And they've been told no, but they haven't gone through as far as I know, they've never come to the planning commission, so maybe that's they should get the official no from them, from the expertise that you're just talking about of balancing, making it look better versus the explicit writings in the North Scott district, which don't say anything about not having this. So this does meet the North Scott district. I don't see it as an exception, except the sidewalk thing. And in fact, I think maybe on Greg's thing a couple of months ago, there were sidewalks proposed for that area. But we'll put them in, I guess, instead of the businesses.
Well, chances are those would be so far down the priority list as well if it's on a street that nobody's going to ever, reasonably utilize.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Anybody?
That wasn't a reason put into the on page 25, but that's good enough.
If you Google map it, it's all parking lot. There's plenty of room to walk. Paved places to walk.
Not necessarily. One of them has rock out there.
I'm looking at 924.
No, but look next door. I mean, well, yes, you can walk in a parking lot, and that's my other problem too, which I've never gotten into, is we don't require commercial parking lots to have sidewalks in their interior. So you got people zooming around at 30 miles an hour while you're trying to just walk to Petco. But anyway, that's another issue. But a sidewalk is basically for pedestrians. It's not for cars. And you're right. There's a lot of asphalt there, but that means there's room to put in a 5-foot sidewalk, in my opinion. But anyway, I'll get out my
Anybody else?
box.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion for a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-71.
An ordinance approving a rezoning from M1 Light Industrial to FCI Flex Commercial Industrial for properties addressed as 924 Locust Hill Circle and 951 Locust Hill Circle.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Lawson,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
Powell,
No.
Richardson,
Aye.
Pryan,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. C, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-72.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Belton Pavilions, a one-lot and one-tract subdivision located at the northwest corner of Markey Parkway and Town Center Drive in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
Yeah, before this evening is a final plat for Belton Pavilions, a one-lot and one-tract subdivision totaling 1.19 acres. This subdivision is located at the northwest corner of Markey Parkway and Town Center Drive, south of Menards. The final plat will allow for the construction of the first phase of the private drive access on Tract A, as well as the first pad site on Lot 1 for the relocation of an existing dental office in Belton, which is a permitted use in the C2 zoning district. The Planning Commission reviewed the final plat on November 21st and recommended unanimous approval of the request. They also approved a preliminary plat for the total 11.47 acre property, which will be required to be revised once the developer has completed a conceptual development plan for the rest of the property. Staff recommends approval of the final plat with 4 conditions. If there are no unanswered questions or concerns this evening, staff does request a double read to allow the applicant to proceed with recording the final plat with Cass County. Additionally, staff is currently reviewing a final development plan for the proposed dental office on Lot 1, which will be scheduled for the Planning Commission next Tuesday.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving the second reading of Bill 2023-72.
An ordinance approving a final plat for Belton Pavilions, a one-lot and one-tract subdivision located at the northwest corner of Markey Parkway and Town Center Drive in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Councilmember Richardson,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
White,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey.
Aye. Motion carries. D, a motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-73.
An ordinance annexing 3.54 more or less acres of property generally located at the southwest corner of 58 Highway and Interstate 49 into the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
Motion and a second.
Before this evening is a voluntary annexation request from city staff to annex the former commuter lot at the southwest corner of 58 Highway and I-49 pursuant to Missouri State Statutes, Section 71-014. Based on annexation research, all adjacent properties were voluntarily annexed in 1971 and 1972 in the southeast area of the city. However, those annexations specifically exempted land owned by MoDOT as right-of-way at that time. As the record is unclear, staff is erring on the side of caution in bringing forward this request so the property be officially annexed into the city. Once annexed, staff will bring forward a rezoning request to zone the property to match adjacent properties. If there are no unanswered questions or concerns this evening, staff does request a double read to allow the voluntary annexation to be recorded at Cass County, which will then allow staff to bring forward the rezoning request in January.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion for a second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for second reading. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. A motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-73, second reading of Bill 2023-73.
An ordinance annexing 3.54 more or less acres of property generally located at the southwest corner of 58 Highway and Interstate 49 into the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Councilmember Pryan,
Aye.
Kraft,
Aye.
Powell,
Yes.
White,
Aye.
Goff,
Aye.
McCallum,
Aye.
Lawson,
Aye.
Mayor Larkey,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Motion carries. E, motion approving the first reading of Bill 2023-74.
An ordinance calling an election on a use tax question in the city of Belton, Missouri.
Present. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This bill would essentially is the first reading for putting the use tax back on the ballot. It comes in response to being asked to put the use tax back on the ballot by our local business community, specifically the Chamber of Commerce and the Downtown Belton Main Street organizations have both approached and they were here and they gave their reasoning why they supported the addition of a use tax for our community. And so we've done some more research to say we have all the answers. It would be false, but we do have hopefully more answers for you on a potential use tax for this community, and specifically what's being presented to you this evening would essentially level the playing field. That's what right now, if you are a local business in the city of Belton, you're at a disadvantage to online retailers from outside the state of Missouri, because folks can get online and purchase something from outside the state of Missouri and not have to pay the local sales tax that they would have to pay if they went inside a local store that's run by a local Belton resident. And so if for no other reason but to be fair to our local business owners and our local community, a use tax is prudent from that perspective. That said, we understand that that 4 times the use tax has come up for a vote, and 4 times the residents of the city of Belton have not approved a use tax. And so it's important that we understand the reasoning behind that. It's important that if we are going to go ahead and add the use tax to essentially put that same exact sales tax on those online out-of-state sales, that we have a good place for that money to go, essentially. Where's the money going to go and how much money is going to be generated? Estimates are that it'd be, in 2022, it would have been $2.7 million in revenue that would have been generated if we had this online use tax. It's probably going to be closer to $3 million or over $3 million for this year if we would have had the use tax in effect. And so that's real money that can go towards doing some very good things in the community. Keep in mind when you purchase something online currently, and if it comes from outside the state of Missouri and we're not collecting that local sales tax, those goods are generally being delivered to properties here in Belton. There is wear and tear on the streets from delivery trucks, from the Amazon trucks, from the UPS trucks, from the FedEx trucks, and so that is very real. And so we think it is very important from that perspective that we level the playing field and allow this tax to be collected. But the bill before you would essentially be written in a way that any revenue generated from a use tax would have to go to one of 2 things. One would be to sidewalks. We've talked about the last couple of years when we've gone to the community during our budgeting process, and we've asked residents from each of the wards what are some of the biggest issues that face our community. The 2 biggest things that have come up are, 1, we don't have enough sidewalks, and the sidewalks we do have may not be in the best shape. The other one is that our water bills are too high, essentially. I think that part of the conversation was part of the election process for many of you when you ran for the office of city council. It was the idea that, you know, our water rates are too high, and we need to figure out a way to mitigate that. Now, why are the water rates too high? There are lots of reasons for that, and if the council decides to go forward with this, we would be happy to put kind of a frequently asked questions page up on the website and share that with everybody about why are the water rates where they are, and there's not one reason why. It's a very complex, multifaceted reason why those rates are what they are. But if this bill were passed and this the use tax were adopted by the residents, then what we would be presenting that we would do with that revenue is half of it would go toward water bill relief in the way of a rebate. Essentially, there's a couple ways we could go about that. I'd love to hear your feedback on which way we would want to do that. We wouldn't have to decide that tonight. That could be decided in the future if the use tax passes. We could either do it as a monthly rebate on the water bill and literally list it out on the bill that says, hey, here's your rebate. And with half of the money that would be generated from use tax, if $3 million is an accurate number, which at this point we feel like it would be, unless online sales suddenly take a nosedive, that's a good number for us to start with. You're talking anywhere from $12 to $15 a month per resident, per user, per water bill. And so that's $144 to $180 a year that residents would save on their water bill if we put that rebate on as a monthly line just to take off their water bill. Conversely, if for instance, if it's $15 a month that we can do the rebate, which is where we think it would be at this point, it would take $5,500 in annual purchases from businesses outside the state of Missouri for the household to be charged that much use tax, the equivalent to $180 of use tax. So we feel like most residents would get a net benefit from having that water bill relief. Most residents aren't purchasing more than $5,500 in goods online from outside the state of Missouri. Some are. There are some that do that, and that's obviously the law of averages is why we would be able to do this, but most residents would benefit from that. In addition, if we had $1.5 million, half of the $3 million to go towards sidewalks, and we were able to team that with some online or some federal money that's available, some grant money and programs that exist currently, and we did we did some debt financing and did 5, 6, 7 years worth of this revenue at one time, You know, for instance, if we had, $10 million that we could put towards sidewalks and we could turn that into an 80-20 grant, that's very highly impactful. Now, I'm not saying we could get a $40 million grant. We probably have to cut it down a little bit, but I mean, still, if we did a $25 or $35 million sidewalk project, that's a lot of sidewalks. We would be able to do a lot of good with that in terms of connecting this community, in terms of making sure downtown has good sidewalks, making sure their schools have good sidewalks around them, and that our kids can actually walk to school, making sure that our highest trafficked areas have good sidewalks, so people that rely on that don't have the car transportation, are able to utilize those sidewalks and get to where they need to go safely rather than having to walk in the street. And so with those two reasons, that's kind of the backbone for this presentation. Each of you should have seen this evening, we've already started preparing, our communications staff has already done a good job of preparing a potential education campaign as to what a use tax is. Now, if you pay sales tax, you're not going to be doubled up with the use tax. So that's one of the misconceptions that residents often get, is that this is an extra tax. Well, it's essentially the same as a sales tax. It just goes for online purchases. And so there's no doubling up of those taxes. If you get the sales tax, you don't get the use tax. If you get the use tax, you don't get the sales tax. So the tax rate would be the same for online purchases as they are if you walk into a store here in Belton and make a purchase. So there's all that. If you have any questions, there's plenty of questions to go around, I'm sure, but we'd be glad to stand for any of those questions. Either myself or Mike Eakey here can help us answer those questions, or we can try to find those answers between now and January 9th, where you'd have to approve a second reading for this if you so decide to approve the first reading. Just keep in mind, there is a deadline. If we want to get it on the ballot for April, we have to approve it by the January 9th meeting, or have a special meeting, because the 23rd, I believe, is our hard deadline to get anything submitted to be put on the ballot. For January 23rd is the hard deadline for the 2024 municipal election in April.
Chris?
Would this savings would be both for residential and business?
Yes, we've done the math that we would use, all users would get this saving, and I think it's important. I know the chamber thinks it's important, the downtown Main Street thinks it's important that we treat all the users the same, including the commercial users, and we've done the math to include all commercial users to have the same exact rebate.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
So to summarize, if the business has a Missouri presence, there is no use tax.
There's already the online sales tax
Because there's
for
already an online sales
the
tax.
Missouri, yes.
So if they're ordering something from like Chewy, they're already paying sales tax. So they're not going to get double tax.
Correct.
So it's if they buy something that the organization or business does not have a presence in Missouri, that's when we're talking about adding this tax.
Yeah, and
To make it equal to that of those who are paying or buying stuff online with companies in Missouri.
correct.
Okay.
And it's very, important that we do something, that here, we're in a border city, right? We're close to the state of Kansas. And so we need to be very cognizant of that. And so, for instance, if you purchase something from Nebraska Furniture Mart, even if you go into the store, they run that purchase through their online, so you end up saving on the sales tax. So if I were to go to a Nebraska Furniture Mart and buy something and have it shipped to my address in Belton, I would only pay the state and county sales tax. I wouldn't have to pay any local sales tax on that. And so Nebraska Furniture Mart is at an advantage over anybody who sells appliances and furniture here in Belton, or even in the entire state of Missouri. And so it's Amazon, Nebraska Furniture Mart. Those are the big ones where you're going to see the difference.
To clarify what Joe just said, the state and the county already have a use tax. So we're just looking at the city portion of that sales tax.
Correct.
Go ahead.
You have, so you've done a great job of sharing the information, thank you. You broke down, basically, this is going to be specific for sidewalks or water. Is it 50-50? Is it how, or is that to be determined, or how are we figuring out? Like, when we use those numbers you gave, you got to spend so much to get to that. How are we looking at those numbers?
Yes, I mean, at this point, we're looking at a 50-50. It'd have to go toward those, but it would have to go toward those two things. Okay, now that's up for the council to decide is how much of what goes to what. But the ballot language that's presented says, and I can read this for you, and it's probably good for the people that are watching online to hear this. This is what the ballot language could read. Shall the city of Belton, Missouri, in an effort to level the playing field for local businesses and provide a water bill rebate for local water utility customers, as well as funds for sidewalk infrastructure growth, improvement, and maintenance, impose a local city use tax at the same rate as the local city sales tax rate, provided that if the local sales tax rate is reduced or raised by voter approval, the local use tax shall be reduced or raised by the same action. So that's what it'll read, which if you were following along or have read along, that also means if in the future the voters decide to lower the sales tax rate or raise the sales tax rate, the use tax rate would follow suit. So it would always be the same rate regardless.
Go ahead.
I know we need to pass a use tax. I understand it is a reflection of changing consumer habits, and I think it's an eventuality. But my concern right now is we haven't moved the needle at all on resident sentiment. And this list of tactics, calm tactics for the city sounds good, but I would like to see what some of this is going to look like before January 9th. I think, if anything, the last couple attempts have moved us backwards in terms of buy-in from the community.
So what specifically are you wanting us to, you say you want to know what this looks like so we can prepare what we need to prepare for you?
Yeah, I mean, I just would like to see some samples of how we're going to communicate this to the public. Even up here with 9 folks tasked with putting this on the ballot,
Yep.
There is some confusion and misstatement of what we're actually asking. The other thing I'm concerned about is the rebate aspect of impacting water bills. I think that also convolutes it. If we could make it very clean that there will be a reflected rate adjustment and not a rebate. Again, you said we don't have to hammer this out tonight, but that to me is a sticking point that I don't think that's going to help get the buy-in we need for this. And we do need this. I just, if we're putting out our best and final offer, we can't fail.
Go ahead.
I think if this passes tonight, I would like to do maybe like a town hall Q&A, maybe by wards, just to inform the people and kind of get it out of how this really is. This isn't an added tax. This is to level the playing field for local businesses. That local businesses have to charge, but you purchasing something online from out of state, you don't have to pay. I wouldn't mind doing like a Q&A, maybe by board, I don't know, something like that, but to inform the people, hopefully we get some good turnouts.
I'd invite everybody to, and I know we just got this to you today, so you probably haven't had much chance to look at it, is this communications strategy, including the website and social media and even mailers to publications, speaking engagements. We are building in quite a bit of resident educational opportunities in different formats. But yeah, I mean, we're definitely open to any way we can help educate people on what this is and what it's supposed to do.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Chris, I'll just say, I think that's a great thought in terms of transparency, and we've tried that. We just don't get great turnout when we do town hall. It's a little discouraging. I think this is a battle, unfortunately, fought and won on Facebook, which is just a miserable place to come to agreement.
Well, one thing we're going to do, or 2 things we're going to do that are going to be, that to me, I think are above and beyond what we've seen in the past as far as tactics, is we're going to make sure we have an explainer video of what a use tax is. I think that's been a battle we haven't been able to fight very well, is just getting an understanding of what the actual use tax is and what it means. And so we are planning to do an explainer video on what a use tax is that anybody can access at any point if they want to share it on their Facebook. Anytime the object of what this is gets convoluted, you know, a very simple video in simplest terms, layman's terms, what it is can help at least educate what that is. Okay, that's one thing. Some of the frequently asked questions thing, I think, can't be underestimated. We are wanting people to tell us what their issues are, so we can tell them why this matters or why this is the right way to go. We're not shying away from that. We're not trying to shy away from the folks that are going to get on Facebook and say, I don't like this because of this, or you didn't address this. Well, we're going to address that, and we don't want it to just be hanging out there. So we want to know what the issues are, so we can make sure that we at least give someone an understanding of our perspective, whether they agree with it or not.
Councilmember White.
I'm trying to remember. I'm old, remember. Is there language in here that for some reason we need to change the percentage from 50-50 to 25-75? Is that mechanism drawn up to where if we need to change that, we have the ability to do that?
You know, the way that the question is written currently, yes, you have the ability to do that. But that's something that the council can decide if we want to, if we want to put it in writing on the ballot, we can do so. The way it is now, it has to go to one of those two things, but the percentages aren't set by that ballot question, if that makes sense.
I think you just answered where my question was going, but it has to be one of those two things.
That's what it
period.
said in the ballot. We have to follow the spirit of the question.
If we decide, we go, hey, water bill went up like crazy this year, so we're gonna shift it 60-40 or whatever, right? We can make that decision, but it's only within those two.
Can you remind me on the use tax, what percentage of voters have to approve it for it to pass?
I believe
50
it's
plus
just
1,
50,
isn't it?
50.1.
It's just the
Yes, it is
50%, it's not,
Yeah.
The only requirement is a simple majority.
okay. We did a Facebook post on the Better Belton page to ask, and it did get 64% yeses, so.
I know we have some special city council meetings coming up between now and January 9th. During those meetings, if we want to announce a Ward 4 or Ward 1 or Ward 3 meeting, are we allowed to do that without it being on the agenda?
No, we could put it on the agenda.
Well, I guess my question is would the intent be that at that meeting, there would be a full city council ward meeting, or would you just be announcing that you are going to have a ward meeting at that special council meeting?
No. If I'm going to have a ward meeting on Monday, the 8th, can I announce it?
Yes.
At one of-
Yes, you
absolutely.
A couple other things I wanted to just food for thought. MML tracks cities that have passed the use tax, and Councilmember Lawson mentioned that spending habits are going to be important as we go forward. More and more people are making more and more purchases online, and that's not changing the wear and tear on the infrastructure on the streets that we have to maintain, that we're charged with maintaining, right? So at some point you got to figure the use tax has got to factor in, or else we're going to be behind the 8 ball when use tax surpasses sales tax and sales tax starts taking that nosedive, which you got to imagine is going to happen at some point, right? Getting back to MML, they about 292, I believe, cities in the state of Missouri have already approved this use tax in their community. Many of them a lot more conservative than what we have here in North Cass County. So to me, this is not a partisan issue. It's a local issue. And so, there are about 390 cities that still have not passed it. A lot of those are smaller communities that haven't even put it on the ballot. But I'm just that's the stats, trying to be transparent.
Again, I would remind you that the state and the county does have a use tax.
Correct.
So, go ahead.
Going to the 75-25, I know that this initially was 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's what was presented to the chamber, and that was what was presented to downtown Belton Main Street. And now you're saying we can change it if we want to, is opening us up for a bag of worms with the people saying, hey, we're going to do 50-50, but we could change this.
I would rather see it that it stays 50-50.
I want to see it stay 50-50.
We can tweak the language in the ballot question to say 50% toward this, 50% toward that, and then it's essentially solidified.
Because if you open that up to where we could change it down the road, people aren't going to like that.
Yeah, I think we need to give them a clear message from the get-go what we're going to do with it, how we're going to spend it, and not change it. Go ahead.
But it also might be important to know that at some particular point, we may not need that amount of funding. And I would just like to have language that would allow us, if we don't need that funding, it's reduced because of some unreason, we don't need that much that percentage of it,
and
then we could come back and say here at the council that we want to move it because we no longer need that amount. We can move it to 70-30.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I believe we'd be better off with the voters if we tell them exactly what we're gonna do and exactly how we're gonna spend it. He just gave us a plan that we're gonna need $120 million to repair sidewalks and put new sidewalks in. That's gonna eat up a lot of that for years and years and years and years, and we can always reduce water, so that's where I'm at.
I'm just going to echo that. Like, I agree with you wholeheartedly, personally, but I think, despite what I think personally, I think it's probably more important that we try to get this across to, the voters, right? Because that's who we're representing, so.
I think there's definitely a skepticism, and it's healthy of government and what they're going to do when it comes to the voters, and that's fair. And so as clear as we can be may be the best solution, and just lay it all out there. And if in the future we decide, hey, we need to move this and change this, we could take it back to the voters again. I mean, and have to make our case again, and which is a fair way to do it, right? I mean, it's all about transparency.
20 years from now, go back and say, we did this, this, and this. Now we need to do this, this, and this. I would rather do it that way than to change it midstream.
Sounds good.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
I would note that there are some cities that instead of delineating that on the ballot language for taxes that are similar to this, specifically the parks and stormwater sales tax, instead of putting on the ballot language 50% for this, 50% for that, they pass an ordinance just at the city council level that goes into the code of ordinances that specifically delineates the percentage amount. That way, in case the city council were to ever consider changing it from 50-50, the citizens would have notice of that on the agenda, but it would also give the city council and future city councils the flexibility to make those appropriations should, for example, there be the need to put 70% towards the water rebate program and only 30% towards sidewalks in any given year. So that is just something that I've seen other cities do that you all could consider.
That's something, if this passes tonight, we could consider 2 weeks from now and decide that 2 weeks from now. So we could think about it in 2 weeks.
Yes, and the only thing is now I'm trying to think of how you craft an ordinance saying how you're going to spend money before the money's been approved, before the tax is approved. I think the effective date I'd have to play around with that, but there could be an ordinance in front of you that specifically delineates either that 50-50 or whatever the council decides percentage. So again, instead of the voters changing it or needing the voters to change it, the city council could change it. But again, all the voters that, want the 50-50 to stay 50-50 would have the opportunity to come into the city council, be under public participation and make their voices heard during that, 2-week consideration period that the council would have.
Not to muddy the water, but I also would like everybody to consider that if we're doing this as a rebate, instead of putting it on the bill, if we decided to do so, we could literally send a check out at the end of the year after the year's gone through and the use tax collections have been finalized, and we know exactly how much money that is. We could send every user that check rebate for that would, whether it's $150 or $144, $180 or whatever that might be, and that might be something that's attractive to folks as well.
Go ahead.
I'm glad that you're billing it as an online use tax, because I think there's some confusion that people think that if they go across the state border, which is only 2 miles away, and they buy a car, then they're going to have to pay Belton tax. But it's still a little complicated because now you can buy cars online. And if you buy a car online, you're not talking about $4,500. You might be talking about $22,000. So it's a significant extra tax to buy it online as opposed to drive over there or drive to Colorado or wherever you're buying the car. But I think that needs to be emphasized, that it's just for online purchases. It's not for out-of-state purchases.
Well, the car thing is a separate thing, because when you go to buy a vehicle, even if you go to Kansas and buy a vehicle, you end up paying your local sales tax rate. And you pay that whenever you go to register the car, you'll end up paying that bill.
Okay.
And so, so this wouldn't have any effect on, it shouldn't have any effect on a car purchase.
Okay.
That's already set.
Shows that I haven't bought a car in a long time.
Go ahead.
Your biggest culprit here, Joe, is the word tax.
Understood.
If you could bury it somewhere and not mention the word tax and say leveling sales between internet and local stores, it might pass easier.
Councilmember Goff, with all due respect, you're right, but at the same time, we need to earn that trust with everybody, and that's going to come with the transparency of saying, here's what it is, here's what we're planning to do with it. If you don't like it, that's fine, but at least, we're being 100% transparent with this is what it is.
It's just the word tax
I hear
triggers
you.
everybody when they hear it.
No, I understand that. But hey, I don't like the word tax as much as anybody else, so I get it.
Go ahead.
So I've been convinced that we do 50-50 and that 50 to the water, 50 to sidewalks, and that if that needs to be changed, it goes back to the voters.
I mean, we can decide that in 2 weeks, can't we? We have 2 weeks.
You could
to
amend
think
that
about
at the
it.
next one.
Yeah, you can take 2 weeks, marinate. Hopefully there are plenty of members of the public watching this tonight that can, let the council know what they think, and you guys could talk to your constituents and come back in 2 weeks, and, there could be a motion to amend the ordinance in the ballot language.
4 weeks.
It is 4
4
weeks.
weeks, sorry.
I'm sorry, yeah, 4 weeks, that's fine.
Yeah, we don't have a second meeting in
Yeah, I
December
know.
for those watching and listening.
Every 2 weeks, so that's.
Yeah.
The next meeting, I should say.
Yep. January 9th is that date, by the way, for those keeping score.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Motion approving resolution R 2023-116.
A resolution authorizing and approving the contract for services for the Route 58 and Powell project, Superior Bowen Asphalt Company, LLC, in the amount of $3,797,558.56.
Present.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. You're up.
So this is the long-awaited 58 and Powell Peculiar project. This project is going to add an extra lane on Route 58 from Powell Road or Peculiar Drive, from Powell Road to the Rams. It's going to remove the signal at Peculiar Drive, and Peculiar Drive will then come out where Powell Drive is currently. This project will also construct the connection of 173rd Street from Cunningham Drive over to 173rd, and basically makes 173rd go across from Peculiar Drive all the way over to Mullen as a straight arterial street with Cunningham teeing into it. Now, this job was funded by multiple agreements that the city has made with MoDOT, and one of them is a cost share agreement. The cost share agreement is 50-50, where the MoDOT pays 50% and the city pays 50%. And that portion is basically for the Route 58 portion. We also got a grant for the STP funds, which is a Surface Transportation Program, funds for the rest of the job, and that's an 80-20 split. So and that money can be used anywhere in the project. So when you get down to it, MoDOT's portion of the cost share is $1.023 million. The federal STP portion is $1.4 million, and the city portion is $1.373 million. And that all comes together to build this project. This project is actually phased into 2 portions. There's a second portion of the job, which we are now going to work on, which is connecting the intersection there at Powell Drive back to Larkspur Circle in behind the businesses. And the other portion is to make the connection from Starlight Drive over to Mullen, which is the back way, because we'll be placing an island down 58, and that's going to block some connections. So we have to provide other alternative locations to get people through. And so this job has already had a concurrence from MoDOT on the bid, because we only received 2 bidders on the job. Both bids were below the engineer's estimate, and so we make a recommendation of taking the bid from Superior Bowen to build this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions they have. I know it's a little confusing.
Any questions? Go ahead.
All right, this is going to sound like I'm being facetious, but I swear I'm not. So, once we start the project, or at what point can we ensure that we'll get the money from MoDOT and from our other partners to make sure this moves forward? And the reason I'm asking that question is because I know that we recently had something that was out of our control, which was the expansion of I-49 get delayed and changed. So I just want to, I'm curious, what can we do to ensure that doesn't happen on something like this?
An agreement's already been signed for this project, so it's in a contractual agreement with them. The project you're talking about, I-49, is just planning, and it was a plan for the future, which has no agreements and no obligation to funds.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Thanks.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
How soon will this project begin?
So after this is awarded, we will then go through a process of signing contracts with them. We then have to, since it's a MoDOT type project, we have to make sure MoDOT approves the contract also. Then we have to set up a pre-construction conference and get a schedule with them. Considering this is in the winter and MoDOT's specifications really prevent contractors from starting a job in winter and wintering a job, most likely it'll start in March. And March 15th is usually the first day they can start work. So I imagine, depending on weather, it'll probably be in April when we'll see the construction start. It'll be a three-phase construction. We'll be moving the traffic signal from 58 and Powell down to the west a little bit while we do construction up there. Then we'll move it back and then finish on the east side.
Be done by August?
Probably not August. We're hoping it's done by November 1. But we can dream a dream.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councilman Powell.
Is there a map of this? I Googled for a map of it. The only thing I find is an out-of-date one on MoDOT's website, which didn't even show 173rd being tied in. So is there, and there wasn't a map here of what's going on.
Yes, I can provide you a map.
Okay, great. And is this, the funds you just mentioned, is that for both Phase 1 and Phase 2, or just Phase 1?
So the funds, everything you see here is approving the first phase of the job, which is doing the extra lane and removing the signal at Peculiar and doing 173rd Street.
Right.
We'll then have to go in, design the second phase, and then get money for that. We have the money in the contract, but just go through the process of obligating the funds for the second phase.
Okay, so there wouldn't be additional funds required for Phase 2?
Yes, well, I mean, yes, we will have to put additional funds
okay,
into the
so
next
the-
phase.
okay,
This is
so-
only for this phase.
Okay, so some of this money hopefully be left over for that design part you're talking about.
No, there will not be any money
Okay,
left over.
okay. So this is just
Obviously,
phase
you've not
one.
built a contract. It'll eventually require additional funds as we do
Okay.
change orders on the job.
Okay. Well, part of the reason I'm asking is page 94, it shows a sign that says Larkspur Court that-a-way. And with this Phase 1, Larkspur doesn't even come into the equation. So they must be they must be anticipating Phase 2 already or
Correct. We're anticipating doing that.
something. Okay. I mean, it's even in their contract.
We're very hopeful to try to get it designed and obligated in the next 6 months. So while
Okay.
this is going on, we're able to get the next one going.
Great, all right. And finally, let's see what finally, there's a huge amount of the contract is about complying, I guess, with federal law and stuff like that. Who monitors that, like minority female hiring, DBE utilization? I mean, I know that they signed off that they were going to be 6%, was that, it's not disabled, but something, disadvantaged business enterprise, but what if it's only 4% or who's doing all this calculation? Some bean counter in Washington, or where?
So there's multiple questions in there. So first of all, it's a goal, it's not a requirement. So the goal of the project hit 6%. If the contractor initially sends up how he's going to achieve the goal and it's approved, then as the contractor goes about the job, if something changes, like we subtract this and we add this part of the project, that goal will be changed.
Okay.
So it is a goal of how it happens.
Okay.
And yes, it is all reported to the federal government. However, how it works is that the contractor has a set of reports that every time that a payment's made, they have to turn in certified payrolls that show how much the prime contractor did, how much every sub did, has to show the wage of every person.
Okay.
Then it's our responsibility as the people receiving the funds to interview the people to make sure that they are actually getting paid and show receipts of their pay to verify how much they're paid, to make sure they make the minimum wage, to make sure, or the wage rate that they have, to make sure that if they're a DBE or if they're a trainee or anything like that, that we notify, find out who it is, and we certify that payroll. That payroll is then turned over to MoDOT. MoDOT then does have compliance people who then randomly pick payrolls. They go back and they check our work and they check the contractor's work. At the end of the job, then you get audited. The audit can happen anywhere from 1 year to 5 years after the job's completed. They go back through all of these items. And if they find that someone did not make the proper payments to the employees, they did not use the proper contractors, then the contractor is then fined for not doing those items.
Okay.
So yes, it's a series of audits on top of it to ensure that everything's done in compliance.
But it starts with somebody in your office looking over those checks and payrolls and things
Correct.
like
It starts with a contractor.
that. Right. Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? The only other question I had, what was your original engineer's estimate?
$4.7 million.
Thank you. Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G, motion approving the resolution of R 2023-117.
Resolution authorizing and approving the contract for services for the Mullen Road Improvements Project with V.F. Anderson LLC in the amount of $5,640,160.05.
Present.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You're up.
So this contract is to do work on Mullen Road. Mullen Road, when you leave 58 highways, 5 lanes, and then when you pass the railroad tracks, it goes to an old 2-lane county road section. This contract will extend the current road past railroad tracks and make it 5 lanes down to Cambridge. At Cambridge, it'll go into a roundabout, and we'll build the roundabout, and then from there, it's just stubbed out, and that's where the project will stop. This project had 4 bidders on the job, and the original engineer's estimate was $6.4 million. At the end, they were estimating the job would be closer to $7 million. The actual bids came in at, low bid came at $5.64 million from VF Anderson. The second bid was from Superior Bowen. If you notice, the 2 bids on this have swapped from the previous bid, primarily because the one contractor did a sunshine request and got all the bid and unit prices from the other contractor and wanted to ensure that he was just a little bit lower. And so they are very competitive. I've talked to other cities, and there's high competition to try to get projects right now, and that brought the project cost down almost $1 million. This job is being paid for by the Transportation Development District, the Belton Cass TDD, and we will make payments for them, and they'll reimburse us for the cost. Happy to answer any other questions you have.
Go ahead.
Is the roundabout going to be single lane or double?
Single lane.
Have we thought about double?
Well, there's no double lane to go on the other side. And so it's going to...
At this point.
At this point. So it's going to be a single lane with the outside basically going as a right turn. So it's a single lane in the inside and the outside. So if you're in the outside lane going heading south, the inside lane will go around and then head south. The right lane will go down Cambridge. So it's kind of a double lane, but it's only a single lane going around.
I guess to carry on that question, so if you're coming from the east going west and going north, would that turn into a turn lane as well?
No, so if you're going east and west, you'll hit the roundabout, you'll go to that center lane, around, and then you can head back north.
All right. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I'm assuming that in our lifetime, we plan on doing something else with those that intersection, south.
Correct.
Already working on it.
And
Yes.
so why aren't we fixing it to where we don't have to adjust that? So that way you have a turn lane off, but you can still go double around turn lane and double around turn lane.
So when the road is built to the south and it's 5 lanes all the way through, then all you have to do is then add the extra lane on the south side of the roundabout to make it a 5-lane roundabout. To make it a 2-lane roundabout. But right now, there's nowhere to go, so you don't want to have a lane that there's nowhere you can use it.
Well, there's still going to be an exit there for those.
It would be a double exit, and there'd only be one lane.
You can't exit into the grass.
He can.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a four-wheeler.
Anybody else? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, one motion non-available to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item to be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
Present.
Second?
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Is this where I can ask to take off a couple of things?
Yeah.
A and E.
You want to remove A and E. All right. Anybody else? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item A, motion approving the minutes of November 28, 2023 and November 30th, 2023 of the City Council meeting.
Okay. Well, this is trivial, but the minutes say that I left the November 28th meeting at 7 o'clock, which is about right. But then it says I voted to go to executive session, but I didn't because I wasn't here, so that probably should move me to absent.
All right. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried with those changes.
We didn't have a first and second on that motion.
Oh.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Should have said that earlier. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item E, motion approving resolution R 2023-119.
A resolution authorizing and approving the contract for services for the Public Works Facility Building B expansion structure, the Building B expansion structure with Worldwide Steel Buildings in the amount of $49,545.
Present.
Second?
Have a motion and a second.
Okay, on page 324, it says in big black letters, not bid with prevailing wages. So my only question is, what does that mean?
Prevailing wages is required if a project's over $75,000. This is under that price. And so it does not require by the state of Missouri to have prevailing wages, which is a set
Okay.
wage.
Okay, so it's not like the cost is going to go up if they do because they don't have it.
No, it's what's required by law.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Do we do a motion?
Motion
Do we
to
need-
approve.
Second?
There was already a motion.
Yeah, we already did the house. Yeah, I did that earlier. Okay.
We were just doubling up this time.
Yeah. Anybody else? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Communication from City Council. Councilman Goff.
I really have nothing except to say Merry Christmas to everyone and hope you have a safe holidays.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. I know this is not our last time meeting this year because we got budget tomorrow, but it's the last council meeting, so I'll echo that. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to everybody. I'm going to also take a minute to ask Councilman Powell over there, put him on the spot, if you can give us any update on the private park for the public, whether now or when it comes around to you. I'd love to hear an update.
Well, I can do it now. They've put in the electrical, which is underground. I hope they got a permit for that. And the next thing is sidewalks or concrete. There's going to be a gazebo in the middle, so there will be a concrete base for that, and sidewalks within the park, and a sidewalk along Herschel. Yeah. So, and that. I guess they can do concrete in a day like today. I don't know, but as soon as they finish the electrical, they'll do it. And then the plantings will be in early March, and then we'll have a kickoff, and then that'll be it. You can sit there and chew tobacco.
Sounds good, thanks.
Sure.
I would just like to say Merry Christmas to everybody too, and I've got a list of things that I would like for Christmas if anybody wants one after our council meeting.
All right, for parks, there's some signups going on right now for Little Hoopers, which is ages 3 to 5 in January. So if you've got a kid in that age range, it's a great program to introduce them to basketball. Adult co-ed volleyball signups are also happening now for a league starting January 10th. If you're good at volleyball, see me. College winter break special at High Blue. I think it's $35 for a month or two for college students back home. And they've got a fun promotion right now where a miniature mascot, Finn Jr., is hiding around High Blue. And if you find it, you can win a 1-month High Blue family membership, and they're doing it for 12 days. So that's quite a few memberships. I'll just echo all the holiday well wishes and say I've seen some really spectacular light displays around town, especially in Apple Valley yesterday. So cheers, everybody.
What about my house? I will echo Merry Christmas to all and Happy Holidays. Once again, I believe Matt stole all my thunder for Planning Commission. We went over everything, correct? So have great, safe holidays, everyone.
Okay, well, I guess I have to start off with saying Merry Christmas. That's the trend. Also, we do have a point in time count coming up. What that is it is being led by Compass Health, and they need volunteers for it to go out and actually count the people that we have in our community that are homeless. If you would like to join in and help with that, please contact Compass Health. We did also have our first official homelessness committee meeting, but since Councilman White is the chair of that committee, I will not steal his thunder, and I will let him report on that.
Okay, well, as you heard from Mr. Rocos, we did, the Transportation Development District did pass the Mullen Road Improvements Project on the December 6th, and then it came to Belton, and the Transportation District's paying for it, but Belton's doing it. I hope I didn't step on anybody's toes, but at the last meeting I was at, I mentioned that I didn't think we had done the best job for the Belton Welfare Association, even though we donated a heck of a lot of money to them. So I did go to Price Chopper as a representative of us, and they donated a huge amount of food to fill up the back of my van even, and it's already at the park department being distributed. And Hy-Vee has said they're going to donate too. I just haven't, they haven't come around yet, but they will. So if anybody's upset about that and didn't want to donate.
No, thank you for doing that.
Okay. And then finally, other than saying Merry Christmas too, in the New York Times Sunday, there was a article that said, it was entitled, it was on the front page, "The guns were said to be destroyed, they were just reborn," and it describes a St. Louis company called Gunbusters, which purports to take guns in reclaiming, you say, I don't like guns anymore, and you donate it to your local police department. They take the guns, but they don't, then they say they do it for free, but what they're really doing is taking off the part that has a serial number and destroying that, and then reselling the rest of the gun as ghost guns. Now, I have not done any independent, I'm just reading the paper, but it sounds to me, what they did say is and even I went to their website, and it does say if you really want to ensure that the gun you give to them is fully destroyed, you have to pay them. You're not going to get that for free. So I guess my question to Scott is, I think earlier in my term here we had some gun give backs. Do we use gun busters? Do you know about this or?
No, we do not use gun busters. What we do is we destroy the guns.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
completely. We've had from time to time companies that call that want to resell those guns. But my stance is I don't want those guns back out on the streets, period.
Perfect.
And
Thank you.
so we destroy them, and we also, they're melted down.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Go ahead.
As Councilwoman Kraft indicated, we had our first official committee meeting to deal with the issue around homelessness in Belton. I won't bore you for 2 hours, but what came to is two essential, we need to deal with short-term emergency situations, and then we need to develop long-term options and plans. And so what came out of the issues around the short-term emergency is warming centers, and that the only one that we really have is the police department. And so we have been looking or given the task to try to expand the options for warming centers during particular frigid nights. And then we will start working on long-term solutions as the meetings go. We're going to be meeting once a month on the first Thursday, give or take a lie or two.
Anything else?
In light of, I forgot who, remember I'm old, over there, we will try to have a Ward 4 council meeting before the next January 9th meeting, so we can try to get some feedback on this use tax.
All right. I don't have much. Happy holidays to everybody. Myself and Mayor Pro Tem Lawson had the opportunity to go to the high school today and judge I don't know really what you call it, but it was a bunch of the students developed web pages, social media, pamphlets, brochures on the voting process of what do you have to do to vote, how do you get registered, so forth and so on. And so it was pretty interesting, 3 or 4 hours, and it was amazing talent that some of these kids come up with, some of these programs. So that was the highlight of my day in this week. So that's all I have. So you want to say anything to that? Or?
Yeah, it was really cool. And you'll see some of these projects in action at the high school, and I believe at the county level, they're going to pick one as a group and implement it. And it was really slick. Smart kids, cool, creative ideas.
Couple things, Mr. Mayor. The first is just a reminder to the public that we will not have a second regular council meeting this month. There will be a special budget workshop tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. where we will discuss the capital projects for the FY25 budget. So that's tomorrow. Another thing I wanted to address is our mayor, Mr. Mayor Larkey, was one of a few mayors that brought an issue to the Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission. If people have heard that MoDOT has proposed cutting the I-49 expansion project that was supposed to take place, stretching it to 6 lanes all the way from where it goes down to 4 lanes just north of 155th, and take it 6 lanes all the way through to North Cass Parkway, and they were going to cut that project. At this point, they've essentially cut that project down to ending at 58 Highway, so that way there would be no 6-lane expansion south of 58. And they've also pushed that project back to 2028. I believe that was supposed to be a 2025 project. And so it was a $72 million project for 2025. It's now a $40 million project for 2028. So Mr. Larkey, along with the mayors from Raymore and Grandview, along with Todd Kraft from the hospital, and a representative from Vanguard Trust,
Bob Houston,
the county presiding commissioner, all went to the commission and presented their case for reinstating that funding fully and hopefully bringing it back up closer to the anticipated time that it was supposed to take place. And I don't know that, it's my understanding that the issue's not dead at this point, so hopefully they will take that up on our behalf. And I know we've also got some support from some elected officials above and beyond the city, at the city level. And so hopefully we will get that project reinstated fully, but we'll wait and see on that at this point. So there's that. And then I just wanted to let the public know that we had hired 2 animal control officers, then one of them resigned, so we were down to 1. Well, now we're back to a second one that we've recently hired. They're being trained as we speak, so we should have that plan fully implemented here pretty shortly. And we've also, I believe, hired someone to be the co-responder for mental health issues, who is going through background check, or going through essentially making sure everything's up to speed on that. And so they should be in place shortly as well. So I'm pretty excited about both of those positions being filled.
Good.
About the animal control thing, really impressed with the quick turnaround to get back to that staffing level. I had a loose dog in my neighborhood just last week, and both of the animal control gentlemen responded, and he's training, and they were both great to work with, so thank you.
Anybody else? Item A, Autumn Woods final plat.
Yep, staff is currently reviewing revised plats for Autumn Woods that have been submitted to match the recently approved revised development plans. Those plats will include subdividing the property so that each building is on its own lot with shared common tracts for a total of 34 lots and 5 tracts. As part of the approval of both plats, they're submitting one for the first phase and one for the second phase. They will have a revised development maintenance agreement that would allow the developer to proceed with replatting the first phase prior to modifying the water meters and individual unit connections. That would allow the developer to more easily and quickly secure financing to complete each individual building. The current plat with all buildings on one lot has made it difficult to obtain the necessary financial approvals, which is why construction progress has been so slow. Those items are anticipated to be brought before the City Council in January.
Any questions? Hearing none. Item B, Autumn Ridge 5th plat.
We're currently reviewing the 5th final plat for Autumn Ridge, which is the final phase of the single-family portion of the Autumn Ridge subdivision. This final phase includes 57 single-family lots and will complete the connection from Catron Avenue to Sycamore Drive, which will provide a new continuous street connection between South Cedar and South Mullen Road. As part of the review, staff is proposing to the applicant that they reserve an easement for a future trail connection to the railroad to the north. And that plat is proposed to be, or anticipated to be, brought before council in February.
Any questions? Hearing none. Item C, 58 Highway and I-49 rezoning.
After approval of the annexation this evening, staff is preparing documents for the rezoning of that property. Since the property was formerly mowed out right-of-way, there is no zoning that was established with the subject property. Therefore, a zoning district will need to be established prior to any future development. Staff is proposing to zone the property C2 General Commercial, which would match the adjacent properties to the south and west, and that would be brought before council on January 9th.
Any questions? Hearing none. Item D, Comprehensive Plan Survey results.
So the Confluence team presented a community review of the community input that was received from the engagement process of the comprehensive plan at the November 29th steering committee meeting. Most of these results are from the ETC survey that was conducted from late September through the end of October, of which 400 households did participate in the statistically valid portion of that survey. So I'll go through a high-level overview of the results and then review the proposed 8 main themes of the comprehensive plan based on those results. As well, those themes were also developed in consultation with the community stakeholders and residents who attended community meetings. So just going over the survey results, each slide is based on different topics. So I'll start with transportation. Obviously, as we are predominantly a car-dependent community, 98% of respondents did say that travel by automobile is very important or important. However, a majority still also express interest or importance to sidewalks and trails. And then although we do not currently have any bus service in the city, 31% or almost a third of respondents did say that bus travel is still an important or very important topic. So that's something that should be taken into consideration in the future. In terms of support for investments, this is particularly related to where residents feel that we should invest tax dollars, would be 92% in roadway upgrades. A lot of that is related to traffic flow at intersections and roadway capacity, as well as connectivity across I-49. And then sidewalk connectivity and improvements was a 75% of respondents believe that that was also important to support. For Parks and Rec, 84% of respondents were very supportive or supportive of improving and maintaining existing parks and recreation facilities. Some other items related to that include support for new buildings, for new parks, acquiring land for parks and amenities, and improving access to parks and facilities through trails, sidewalks, bike lanes, and other transportation access points. Specifically, there were a lot of questions in the survey related to trails and where trails need to be improved upon. 69% of respondents support prioritizing the development of multi-use trails to connect parks and rec facilities. Some other important areas that need to be connected in the community include crossings at major city streets, connecting to existing trails, downtown Belton, and schools. So all things that we've talked about, particularly with sidewalk improvements as well. There were some sustainability items on there. 71% support prioritizing green spaces and park development, but some other items on there include 70% related to waste reduction and recycling programs, and then 65% supported upgrades to energy efficiency in buildings and infrastructure in the city. Housing is probably one of the more discussed items in the survey, and there's a lot of things here to kind of unpack. The Confluence team did a good job at going through that, but overall there were a number of high percentage of respondents believe that there was an adequate supply of various types of housing, including apartments, manufactured homes, townhomes, and condos, as well as for housing for families earning more than $88,000 a year. At the same time, the most needed housing types were essentially all income categories. So generally speaking, the takeaway there is that there's housing needed across all incomes and all demographics, and essentially all housing types. There is a perception, though, that especially with the recent construction of a lot of apartments, that there's an adequate supply of that. But still there's a need for housing of all types and incomes. Community satisfaction, 70% of respondents did rate Belton as or they were very satisfied or satisfied with living in Belton. Some other items where there was a majority satisfaction was feeling of safety in neighborhoods, places to raise, a good place to raise children, quality of life, and the feeling of safety in the community. In terms of some of the neighborhood activities, the side street and sidewalk being designed for all ages and abilities, 86% of respondents supported that. And then some other items to consider include incorporating resilience and flood resistance in new developments, accommodating additional new senior housing, and the ability for residents to age in place or in their neighborhoods. Improving social services to address homelessness, and then making sure that new developments have adequate transportation access. And then some of the ideas and just related to the future of the city, 71% agreed or strongly agreed that the city needs to accommodate small business growth and expansion. And some other priorities include the preservation of historic places, with 82% supporting that, maintaining the small town feel, improving the appearance of residential neighborhoods, and there was also a lot of talk about commercial facade improvements and commercial corridors as well, and then improving existing parks and open spaces and improving employment opportunities. And then the last slide related to the survey is specifically related to park facilities, as that probably was a larger portion of the survey than any other topic. This is the sort of all of the different types of amenities that were asked about in the survey and kind of a ranking of where those fell in the priority rankings. Overall, the top facilities that residents responded that they would like to see more of would be walking and hiking trails being number one, fishing, boating, sailing areas, marinas, outdoor amphitheater, large playgrounds, and large regional parks. And then for the 8 themes that came out of the survey results, as well as I mentioned, some of the stakeholder interviews and the community meetings, these are the items that the overall, the 8 topics that the comprehensive plan will have individual chapters and goals associated with. So first is housing, and again, overall, just a strong need for more housing for every stage of life and income group. Downtown and historic preservation being another topic. There was a strong desire to continue to enhance downtown, including supporting local businesses, expanding the hours of downtown beyond just 8 to 5, adding more restaurants and retail opportunities, and then having safe pedestrian access to downtown for residents. Community identity came up numerous times with the desire to maintain a small town feel while also figuring out what is and how to celebrate Belton's unique identity. Community aesthetics with the desire to improve the appearance of residential neighborhoods, streetscapes, and commercial corridors. Business growth and development, including more employment opportunities, and overall the sentiment was that people have liked the recent growth in business and employment in the city. Parks and rec, improving existing parks and open spaces, as well as expanding opportunities into the future. And in particular, making sure there's safe pedestrian and bike connections to those parks and recreation facilities. And then essential services, continuing to, as we grow, adequately staff EMS, police, fire, and need a regional approach to how we can deal with vulnerable populations such as homelessness. And then lastly is connectivity, which gets into more of the traffic, transportation items, including improving capacity on roadways, and then providing safe and reliable sidewalk and multi-use trail networks that connect various locations throughout the city. So, any questions on any of those topics? And then I'll also be giving the same presentation to the Planning Commission next week, so they'll also have that information.
Any questions? Go ahead.
What's next?
So the next steering committee meeting will be in early February. So right now the consulting team is working on drafts of some of this based on the feedback that's been received thus far. So there will likely be some additional information coming to the council probably in February, I would say at some point. There will be another opportunity for a joint work session or a joint session with the Planning Commission and the steering committee to kind of review some of those before we get to a final draft.
Go ahead.
One thing I think it's interesting, and I hope you and the group doing this look at it. 2 things that came up completely on different subjects tonight: the Mullen Road expansion and the what you just did on Autumn Ridge will cause some traffic coming up Cedar and Y to have a route to get to either, hopefully to 49, but at least to Mullen Road easier. And that, one of the biggest things, because the Parks Department is pushing it and Downtown Belton is pushing it, is having more cooperative events between downtown and Memorial Park. And the biggest bugaboo, and I can just sit on my front porch and watch it, is pedestrians playing hide and seek with traffic on Y Highway. So anything that reduces traffic on Y Highway will allow a better pedestrian walkthrough from between those 2 sites. Or if we don't, then we just put a bridge over Y Highway, maybe, I don't know.
So Old Town Belton is one of the 4 sub-areas of the comprehensive plan. So that is one of the items that we've pointed out to the consulting team is making sure there are safe, what can be done along that stretch of Cedar, particularly from from North Avenue down to Cambridge, because we do know that traffic is going to remain the same or likely increase, but how can we safely accommodate bikes and pedestrians that are either along that street or crossing that street?
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Item E, MS4 permit presentation.
And I know what you're thinking. We saved the best thing for last tonight.
Don't get carried away.
So, every year we have to do an annual stormwater management program update for the council. You're going to see it looks pretty much like the previous ones I have done, but it's a requirement of our permit, and so you get the nickel show. So we have a permit for, believe it or not, for stormwater. So in order to have stormwater leave your city, which everybody does, you have to have a permit from Missouri DNR. And when Missouri DNR issues you your permit, and this it's MS4, it's Municipal Separate Stormwater Systems. And so everybody just says MS4 real quick. You have to get a permit, and your permit has to have goals and there's things you're supposed to be doing to achieve your permit, to make sure we do what we're supposed to do. One of them is doing this presentation at the meeting. So our permit right now is issued in 21, it goes through 26, and then we're going to have to reapply for a permit. When we reapply for the permit, we'll get an audit to make sure we have done everything that the permit says to do. You'll see a couple of the items are hard for us to achieve, and so we have to continuously work at doing it. And so we've hired a person a couple years ago to help us with the program, and they actually had to walk every stream and every place the water discharges from every parking lot and every place in town, and we have to map it and keep track of it. We've also do stream clean events. We do other events to try to keep our streams clean. And we've also done things like, if you've noticed the medallion that's on every inlet now that says this water goes to a creek, and it's got a little fish symbol on there to warn you, don't just put things in an inlet. And we'll look at that here in just a second. But we had volunteers put that on every inlet in town. There are 6 minimum control measures. These are the minimum things you have to do in your stormwater program. And we're going to look at them pretty quick so you can see what they are. The first one is we have to do public education and outreach. Now, we've done things like hold public meetings in which nobody came. We've done online meetings, which we got 2 people to come to. But we also do things where we go in and we talk to schools, and that's a great thing to do. And so we hold touch-a-truck events, and while we hold that event, the kids are touching the trucks and are excited to see all these great things. We throw in, we talk about stormwater, and it may go over their head, but it helps us reach our permit because we actually are doing outreach to the kids as we do it. So you'll see at times that we'll go out and talk to kids about stormwater, and hopefully they relate some of those things to their parents, but hopefully it teaches them some of the things that's in the permit. But we've tried to do a lot of different outreach, and all of our things are on our website. The second thing is public participation. The biggest public participation we can do is when people come out and do stream cleans. And that really helps us be able to go and claim that we're out there doing things to help increase our water quality. And subdivisions that have their own stormwater pond that they're responsible for cleaning, it'd be really helpful if those individuals would take time to clean out those ponds that they have. You'll see that they're usually full of a lot of trash and need to be cleaned. So as the water leaves them, it leaves cleaner. And that's the whole point of having a stormwater permit, is that the water that falls, it gets cleaner as it gets to the major rivers and creeks. The third thing is illicit discharge detection and elimination. We get about 1 or 2 calls a year. We don't get many, but we'll end up with calls of people who are discharging things into creeks that they shouldn't be doing. One of the major ones that we get is people who take animal feces and are throwing them into creeks or into ditches. That's something you cannot do because that's an illicit discharge. We've also had businesses who have discharged certain things out of their manufacturing into a nearby creek, and we had to go to them and get them stopped. But all these things are things that we have to look for. So the winter time of the year is our major time for going and walking creeks, because during the summer, there's a lot of animals and poison ivy, mainly snakes and poison ivy. So if you like to go out that time of year and walk a creek, let me know. So we normally do it during the winter, looking for illicit discharge, but also residents do call us to say, I'm seeing someone with an oily product or some other residue of their manufacturing business that's going into a creek, and we'll go and get that stopped. But we do track all those discharges. Construction site stormwater runoff, this is the number one place that we get in trouble with Missouri DNR. So, you know, you'll hear a lot about how we go out and we want to make sure those silt fences are up. And contractors, the first thing they do after they get there is they knock them down and bring more wood to the side, or they bring rock to the side, or something happens. And we're always requiring people, you got to get them set back up, you got to put them up. We have a mud fee, and they want to know why we have mud fees and why do we do these things. Because part of our permit is that you can't leave a construction site with mud on your tires and put mud on the road. That is a strict violation because that mud goes into our inlets and then goes into the streams. And that really is it's a stormwater control. We're not supposed to do that. And so that's why, you know, when they call you and say, why is Public Works always on us about these silt fences? Because it's part of the permit that we have. And if it doesn't happen, we're the ones who get the fine when someone calls it in. And so this is an important one, and that we do a lot of active work on. The second one is the post-construction stormwater management, which is basically all these different stormwater devices that have been put in. We build BMPs, best management practices, which are swales and other items like that. They're designed to catch the oil that's going off the roadway so it doesn't get into the inlets and the creeks. And so we do a lot of work. There's people who do sand filters that's actually in the filter, and there's all different types of techniques to do this. But you actually have to go out and maintain these ponds, these swales, these inlets, and keep them clean from the trash. Because some of them do have trash catchers in them, and you have to go do them. And they're big nets, and so as the water comes out, you catch all the debris in the net, and so it doesn't go into the rivers and lakes around us. And so this is another thing that we do, and we have to check to make sure it's all happening and being done. And these are just other activities that we're in charge of and have to maintain. The last one is pollution prevention, and it's mainly for our facilities. So we go to our facilities every year and we do a check to make sure that everything is being handled correctly. Like for our operation, we use salt, and so we have to make sure that our salt stays inside the building, that when it rains, the water doesn't get into the salt and right onto the creek to hurt the fish and whatever nature is in there and destroy it. There's also places that have cans of paint or oil or other things. We have to make sure they're all in containers or they have a ways to prevent from spilling out onto the ground and getting to our creeks and being a discharge. So those are the things that we do. In summary, this is our stormwater permit. We have to continuously work on it. We have to continuously make reports to Missouri DNR. And in the end, we will get audited for the things that we're doing. But we keep working the program. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions?
What are our largest creeks within Belton?
Oil Creek is the largest creek. It is a core-controlled creek. So it basically goes for where Markey Park Detention goes underneath I-49.
Mm-hmm.
It goes from that point just basically straight north.
Okay. And the what is called the west side of the East Creek or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's another one that we have that goes basically from Hargis Lake all the way down, and it goes beyond our old maintenance site and out of town. That's another large one.
Okay.
West Fork of the Grand River.
Yeah.
What's the West Fork of the East Creek, and then the East Creek goes into the Grand River. Yeah. Okay.
Anybody else?
I just to relate a slight story, my thesis way back in 1969 was on pollution in the river, and I went out and walked just like you did, and there was a soda pop factory on the creek, and between 10 and 12 it was brown because they were making root beer, and between 12 and 2 it was orange because they were making orange, and there was no control at those times. That was even before the Water Pollution Control Act. But it's a very important thing that you're doing.
Anybody else? Well, that's it. We don't have to do executive session. That's changed, so we don't have to do that tonight. So I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Gotta give me one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.